Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen, and this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, when their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Enjoy this Verizon ringback tone while your party is reached.
Yeah, baby. Hold on, I'm on the tractor. Hold on.
What are you doing?
I'm bush hogging.
We have to do our show. I mean, I know the grass is growing. It's time to do our show, honey. We're on the air right now.
Oh! All right, hold on.
You're on the tractor right now?
How much time do I have?
0 seconds.
All right. I'm going to leave the tractor out here in the field. All right. Hold on. I'm coming.
I know it's a matter of the grass is growing, and you if you let it get too long, we're in the middle of a jungle. But I mean, we do have to do a radio show.
I'm just trying to knock out a little bush hogging at night when I got the time. I didn't know the show started.
Oh, okay.
How much do we have? Any time?
No.
I'm having to walk through pastures to get to you.
Okay.
Why didn't you let me know?
Because I figured you were downstairs, and I came downstairs and you weren't here, so I called you.
All right, so we're on the air right now.
Yes, we are. Humpty-dum.
Hi.
The show must go on.
And gentlemen.
And who are you?
I'm Don Neuen. And I'm walking through a pasture trying to get back up to the studio. My bad.
Watch out for horse poop.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
Are you ready? I'm going to bring up your mic here.
Hi, everybody.
We're hearing you.
I'm
Don Neuen.
Okay. Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me be the first to welcome you to tonight's riveting episode of Cowboy Logic Radio. Boy, have we got a big show for you. And I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you, Donna Fiducia.
And you're very, very late. Extremely late.
I had no idea what time it was. Well, I mean, here's the thing. And any of you that are out there listening that are farmers that live in rural America, and if you have a tractor, you know what it's like when you get on the tractor, you get to thinking, you get to talking to God.
It's
you're
light
doing all
out
these
late.
great things. And
days are longer.
Time flies by.
And the horses sit there and
I'm
look
in the
at
dark
you.
out there. Thank God that we've got the big halogen lights on the front of or LED lights on the thing.
All you need to do is follow the line of the previous time you went around.
But my
it'll look good in
apologies,
the morning.
ladies and gentlemen. I had no idea that I was running that far behind, but I'm in here now, and we're ready to go. And I'm sure that Donna was pretty peeved off with me. What do you say, Donna?
Well, I'm upstairs basically doing the dishes, so I thought you were down here getting the studio ready. I come down. There's nobody here, so I'm calling your cell phone. and
I'm out bush hogging pastures. Well, hey, you know, what the heck, you know. Hey, speaking of jobs, I mean, that's one of my jobs, don't you think?
Mowing?
Yeah, bush hogging pastures.
That's pretty much a
mowing,
full-time
cutting
job
grass.
this time of year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Donna, I have a few really BS jobs, as they would say.
Okay.
These are the biggest BS jobs in America.
Well, that's because you're getting this from the New York Post.
That's
Folks,
right.
I got to tell everybody, Don got me the best present for Mother's Day.
The best!
Being a New York reporter for, some 20, 30 years, I miss the New York Post. It's just not the same when you have the app. I'm sorry, it's just not the same.
Not.
You got to have the actual
You got to
paper.
find page 6 on page 14.
Yes, page 6 is never on page 6, but that's okay because the headlines are what really makes it like headless body and topless bar.
Right.
I mean, it's classic headlines in the Post.
So what did Don get Donna for Mother's Day this year?
He calls the New York Post, and they actually will deliver, albeit days later, but they will deliver
it's a mail
the hard
subscription
copy
service.
Mail subscription service.
So we get the New York Post about a week later. late, but they all come in as usual, and then we get to enjoy the New York Post, and you do just like you did when you lived up in New Jersey. All right, so coming out of the New York Post, here are the the biggest BS jobs in America.
Did they actually say BS, or did they kind of have hashtags in there?
They have BULLSH**T.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So we get the idea.
Right. Okay, so here we go. The first one, number 1, compliance workers.
This is in America, right?
Banking is riddled with BS top to bottom. One banking efficiency expert told the person that wrote this article that he estimated about 80% of banking jobs could easily be eliminated.
That's why you pay those high fees. Somebody's got to get paid.
Compliance workers. All right, number 2, student paper writers. These are people, Donna.
I didn't know they had that anymore.
These are people that write essays and term papers for college students.
Oh, man. Where were those people when I was in college?
I remember when we were in school, we had to actually write our own papers.
Or we took one from, someone in the frat house or the sorority house that had one from a couple of years previous.
Yep. All right, let's see. Number 3. Oh, you'll love this one.
Uh-oh.
Telemarketers.
Oh, gosh. Got a couple of those today.
It's a job with no social value whatsoever. Telemarketers.
Or brains, for that matter.
How would you like to go into work? And I'm not belittling people that have jobs. Well, maybe I am. That have jobs as telemarketers because they're working and they're earning a living for their family. Yeah.
Which a good chunk of people
how would you like to go into work and your job all day long was to irritate people that actually want to hang up on you the minute they realize you've called them?
There's only one thing worse, and that would be like working at ADP, where you work with people's money and they call up and yell at you. Yeah, that's got to be worse.
All right, here's another little factoid. An estimated 40% of U.S. workers feel their job is pointless.
Oh, man. That's pretty bad.
All right, let's see. Number 4 here. Middle management.
Again, something else that could easily be eliminated.
All right, here's what one middle management guy said. 10 people work for me, but from what I can tell, they can all do the work without my oversight. My only function is to hand them work.
And have them kiss his backside.
Why do you have a job, dude?
And have them kiss his backside.
All right, let's see. Oh, I like this one.
Okay.
Corporate lawyers.
Well,
here's a guy that says,
just lawyers.
I'm a corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
I contribute nothing to this world and am utterly miserable all the time.
Yeah, but he probably makes a lot of money doing it.
All right, so that's what corporate lawyers.
US
I have 2
jobs.
More. 2 more. Movie executives. How many times have you and I watched
with one today?
We will be, but he's a real one.
A real movie
How many
executive.
times have we been watching TV or a movie, especially TV, like Suits, where you've got 25 executive producers that come on while the rolling credits are happening at the beginning of the show, and they go like 12 minutes into the show because they have to list 25 executive producers.
I never understood that.
Movie
they must
executives.
all have money they're contributing.
All right. Ever wonder why Hollywood movies are so bad? One reason is where once there were just writers, directors, and producers, now there's a dozen or more useless executives in between. None of them really have anything to do, but all of them feel they have to interfere with the script and everything else just to make some excuse for their existence. So movie executives are right up there with the BS jobs in America. The last
but years ago. Okay, last one.
Academic administrative staff.
Oh, gosh, I figured it was somebody like that. How about those people they use guidance counselors?
Well, that might be one of these, but over the last several decades, university administration has ballooned insanely.
There
are hosts of new vice chancellors, vice deans, deanlets, and even more.
Deanlets?
Yeah.
Deanlets?
Who all now have to be provided with a tiny army of assistants to make them feel important. First, they hire them. Then they decide what they're going to do. And then they make up a whole bunch of paperwork.
Your tuition hard at work.
Academic administrative staff.
I know somebody who doesn't do any work anymore.
Who?
Meghan Markle.
Megan! It's the My Pillow guy!
Speaking of the aforementioned New York Post, as I leaf through it.
Yes.
A full page figurine picture of the Royal Highness Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
How tall is the
Hamilton
figurine?
collection.
It'll have to say.
I can't read the print.
Is this
too
something
small.
that can Velcro to your dash?
Probably actual size is like about 7 inches, which is a lot bigger than I thought. But it's got her standing there in her beautiful gown. And then there's another thing that fell out of the post that shows a fairy tale come true. Over 8 carats of a royal love replica ring.
And how much can you get that replica for?
I would assume Meghan's was the real deal.
Yeah.
This one is, I don't know, it's probably 8, easy payments of $3.99 each. I don't know. It's a Bradford.
No, it's got to
Exchange
say, how much is
jewelry,
it? How much is it? Read through it and see.
I can't see what
All right,
it
well, you
say.
talk. You talk
You
and
look
let me
through
read.
that and tell me. I can't
tell you how
read.
much
It's
it
too
is.
small.
All right, let's see here.
But I mean,
Let's see here.
give me a
Hey,
break.
satisfaction is guaranteed. To assure a proper fit, a ring sizer will be sent to you after your reservation has been accepted.
Maybe it's on the other side.
Well,
Turn
I'm
it
getting
over.
to it.
Oh, you're getting to it?
Royal Love replica ring. Over 8 carats of diamond-esque. Simulated diamonds. Solid sterling silver. Lavished. With 18-karat gold plating. Stunning replica of Prince Harry's original design for Miss Markle. Still no price.
Hey,
Let's see here.
this figurine comes with 8 Swarovski crystals, shine as bright
All right.
as the royal jewels on her tiara, her earrings, and her ring.
I bet. Okay, I found out how much this thing costs, Donna.
How much?
All right. First of all, the world rejoiced in the happy news of Prince Harry's engagement to Meghan Markle.
Give me a break.
Actually, you know what? We didn't rejoice in this because we were kind of bummed out that she left Suits.
Yeah, I know. I love that show.
It's a great show, and now, we're losing cast members.
And she's not the Megan person on the My
Let's
Pillow
see
commercial either.
here. Megan! My Pillow guy! All right, let's see here. What can we... Oh, this spectacular replica ring is an outstanding value at...
What? Come on.
$99.
Really? That's more than I thought for that.
Payable in 4
piece
payments
of
of
glass.
$24.75 and backed by our 120-day guarantee that it won't turn your finger green or fade.
The Megan figurine has a 365-day money-back guarantee.
It must be a better product. Let's see here. The ring is available in women's whole and half sizes, 5 to 12, and arrives along with a certificate of authenticity.
The ring is actually pretty plain, if you ask me.
In
It's
a
just
custom presentation case. It also...
the ring you gave me is a lot nicer, quite frankly.
Well, you got to pay $9.98 in shipping.
Oh, there you go.
And you got to allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. So, all of you guys out there that are thinking about getting this ring for your fiancé, you got to remember it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to get there. And you do have an unconditional, is it unconditional guarantee?
I'm
nope,
sure.
It's just
No?
our 120-day guarantee.
As long as it doesn't turn your finger green,
Yeah,
then
or
you're
something
okay.
like that.
Hey, speaking of somebody who...
Don't miss out. Order yours today.
Someone who also doesn't have
I wonder
to work.
if Jeff Sessions bought one
And
of
we
these
do wish
rings
her well, in fact.
for
And-
Mrs. Sessions.
Are you done? Have you seen Jeff Sessions
Hey, Jeff.
lately?
Nope, Jeff, we got a bolo out, and Jeff Sessions, bolo for Jeff Sessions.
Maybe he'll appear
Jeff
after
Sessions
the 11th
might get one
when
of
the
these
IG
rings
report
for like a
comes out.
50th wedding anniversary with Mrs. Sessions.
Maybe when the IG report comes out, supposedly on the 11th, we actually might hear from Jeff Sessions. But speaking
Donna,
of other women who
I
married
want
up,
one of these rings. Can you get one of these for me?
no. Speaking of other women, I shouldn't say she married up because I think she's a real classy lady to begin with.
Who's that?
Of course, that is Melania Trump.
Yeah,
And
she is.
We have a letter from Melania Trump to you,
Oh,
Donald
for
Neuen.
me?
Yes.
Okay, what's it say,
This
Donna?
did not come out of the New York Post.
Is it on parchment?
It's pretty
Is
close.
it in stationery?
Her
Signature.
signature looks just like Donald Trump's too.
It's kind
just
of an up and
a
down.
bunch of upside
it's like a,
down V's.
It's like a Geiger counter
Yeah,
or
really,
whatever
she
those
must have
things are that measure earthquakes.
Taken lessons from Donald on how to write your
All
signature.
right, so what did Melania send? She sent that to me. Does it say
Yes, it says, "Dear Donald,
me? She's writing.
Donald Leland Neuen II.
Very cool.
On June 14th, we will gather to celebrate Donald's birthday as in Trump.
No, we won't. My birthday is in February.
This is Trump. Birthdays are
Well,
always
wait a minute.
a
Hold
special
on a second.
occasion.
Hold on.
Please send us
Wait a
money.
minute. Which Donald are you talking about? Me
This is Trump's
or Trump?
birthday. Donald Trump has a birthday coming up on June 14th.
Did she invite me to it?
He might be in Singapore at that time.
Did she invite me to this?
No, she just wants some money for the RNC, which is why I won't send it in. I'll send it to Trump, but I ain't going to send anything
Who's
to
the
RNC.
goofball that's in charge of the RNC right now? Do we even know?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Is it Megan?
Actually,
Megan!
no, I do know.
Maybe it's Jeff Sessions.
What's his face? His daughter from Utah.
Oh, Romney?
Romney McDaniel.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, there's one more reason not to send a penny to the
Exactly.
RNC.
Sorry, Melania. By the way, the New York Post, as we were talking
Hey, you
about
know
headlines.
what, though? I got to interrupt you about something.
You've interrupted me all the
I know.
whole
That's
show.
my job in the first segment. You know that.
So annoying.
Listen, Donna, listen.
What?
We don't need to say, nobody needs to send any money to the RNC. All you got to do is go out and vote in November. They don't need money if you vote.
That's true.
Good point, huh?
But I would send money to the candidates, the individual candidates, certainly not to the RNC.
I would say, I voted for
And
that
make
guy
sure
that wears
it's less-
khakis.
Yeah, make sure. It was
Jim-
the insurance commissioner.
What's his name?
I don't know.
Jim Burt?
He just had the
Jim
best,
Budd?
He had
No,
the
I went to
best-
school with Jim Budd.
And he won by like 60%
what was
of
his
the
name?
vote. I don't remember anymore.
We don't have the name recognition with this guy, but we remember
Buck.
his commercial.
Buck, was it Buck?
Jim Buck.
Jim Beck, one of those Buck Becks.
What are you wearing?
Like that.
Jim Back? Jim Buck? Glenn Beck?
And he goes, khakis.
Buckwheat?
They were great commercials. Everybody voted for the guy, one hands down. So Melania, we do wish her well, and she will not actually be going to Singapore if and when these talks happen with the North Koreans. And then
Well, I
the
don't blame
media
her.
is
Barron's out of school. I'd stay home,
The
too.
point is, the media is all over her. Give me a break. She's obviously got some health issues. Let her heal, for God's sake. She's, in the hospital for almost a week with some sort of kidney ailment. I mean, I think she's got to get better. I mean, this is a serious illness if your kidneys, and she's not, she's too young to be having these kind of problems, if you ask me.
All right, listen.
But I want to,
before you get into anything
can
else.
I just say one more thing?
Maybe.
Jace.
What do you want to say?
That the New York Post has the best headlines. And
You've
when
said that.
Donald Trump married Melania, the headline was, "The lady is a Trump."
Yeah.
I thought that was very
That's a pretty good one,
memorable.
too.
It is.
Hey, before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, we need to recognize our network and our affiliates, because
Yes.
we don't do that in segment 2, 3, and 4. Digital flagship, ladies and gentlemen, Talk America Radio. You can find that at talkamericaradio.us. talkamericaradio.us. We'd like to do a big hat tip to the man behind the helm, or at the helm, with Talk America Radio, and that's one L. Ron Phillips. All right, our terrestrial affiliates. These are the guys that are the AM/FM stations that blast our show out to the masses. And we need to do a hat tip to WDDQ, Talk 92.1 FM, serving South Georgia. Hello, everybody down in South Georgia. We love you, and you love me, Don NEUEN. All right.
Hey, that's Adele, baby.
That's right. All right, WJHC, Talk 107.5 FM, serving North Florida. Both of those stations serving the I-75 corridor as you leave Florida and enter the lovely state of Georgia. Hello, everybody down there in Jasper, Florida, and the North Florida area. We love you, and I know you love me, Don NEUEN.
I love you. You love
Scott
me.
James and Jack Ring. You guys are awesome sauce. Now, let's move to West Georgia. WLBB 1330 News Talk, AM, and 106.3 FM, serving West Georgia and East Alabama, where Jeff Sessions might be located. He might be over there in Heflin, Alabama. We don't know, because we got a bolo out for him.
At this point,
I wonder if
Please go
Jeff's
back.
actually hiding in Tallapoosa, Georgia. I wonder if he's crossed the line thinking that he can stay away from law enforcement and the media.
He's staying away from
we don't
everybody.
know where
that's
Jeff
for sure.
Sessions is. Do you know where Jeff Sessions
I
is,
want
Donna?
to give him the benefit of the doubt.
What doubt?
I want to say that when the IG report comes out in a couple weeks, they keep pushing it back. Right now it's June 11th. But if it comes out in a couple weeks, that maybe Jeff Sessions will actually emerge, like on Groundhog Day.
Yeah, he might. Hey, can you guys hear the dogs? They're howling at the coyotes.
No, that you're not going to hear him.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to
certainly
hear him.
Hey, the swamp is so deep. When I worked at the Fox News Channel, there was a guy named David Rhodes. And everybody's going, oh, he's big into Republican stuff. And then all of a sudden, he got a job at CBS. David Rhodes is running CBS. Kind of like what Alison Camerata did when she got paid by CNN. She did a 180. Well, David Rhodes has a brother. Yes, folks, that would be Ben Rhodes. See how incestuous this business is? Former national security advisor for Barack Obama, a key player in Benghazi and the Iran nuke deal. And by the way, CBS pretty quiet on the Benghazi story. I wonder why. Well, Ben Rhodes apparently is part of an HBO documentary of Team Obama's final year, culminating with Rhodes being rendered speechless on election night 2016.
I just came outside to try to process all this. It's a lot to process. I mean, I can't even. I can't. I mean, I can't. I can't put it into words. I don't know what the words are. I mean,
you know, in radio, you
clearly
shouldn't have
you
dead
couldn't
air.
put it into words.
You shouldn't have dead air in radio. We had to leave those pregnant pauses in there for effect.
When we pulled that soundbite, I said, Donna, you want me to tighten this up a little bit? And she goes, no, leave it for the impact.
the ambiance.
Yeah.
Let's continue on with the incestuous business we have here at the networks.
Okay, all right.
ABC's George Snuffleupagus, who was in the Clinton war room and now masquerades as a mainstream journalist, asked Rudy Giuliani over the weekend, can Trump pardon himself? Now that the libs are all peeved because he pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, and of course, Obama goes okay. It's okay for him to pardon Chelsea Manning. And Bill Clinton to pardon FALN terrorists. I mean, come on. This is unbelievable. So, of course, Rudy goes, yeah, he can. Well, he can, but it's a hypothetical question.
Well,
It's
he's
just
not going to
stupid.
do that.
It's just stupid.
But constitutionally, he can.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the Constitution does it say who that president, any president, can pardon or not pardon.
No.
Nowhere.
But that Ben Rhodes soundbite, it came out the end of last week, but, you know, I'm sorry. I can't hear it
I'm
enough.
trying to process.
It's too funny. It's pretty damn funny when you think about it. Hey, speaking of people who can't handle any kind of
Trying to process.
problems,
Processing.
snowflakes,
Trying.
students in Rockland County, New York, that's New York State, just above New York City, complain they're getting too much homework. So guess what's happening? The district is considering eliminating homework. Oh, man. I'm like 30 years too late to go to school.
Donna Fiducia, who do we have coming
man.
up tonight on the fabulous Cowboy Logic Radio Show?
We are going to be talking to an executive producer extraordinaire, the big kahuna, one Academy Award winner. That would be Jerry Molen, Academy Award winner for movies like Jurassic Park and Schindler's List and Rain Man. And also the executive producer of Dinesh D'Souza's movies, a new one coming out this August.
30 minutes to Judge
We'll
Wapner.
find the latest on that.
30
There you
minutes
go.
to Judge Wapner.
And then we'll be talking to Charles Ortel, the latest on the Clinton Foundation. I'm an excellent driver. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you this 24/7 stream of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. We are a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. If you're able, please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. Your donation will go a long way in helping us continue to share the American voice. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Chronicles of Lower Education. I'm the Fed Up Professor. Have you heard the news about the death of freedom of speech in England? Yep, it's grim, but thousands of Brits are beginning to wake up and stage protests against a government that recently imprisoned a journalist for accurately reporting on Pakistani rape gangs. How did matters get so terrible? Well, FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, reports on American universities that have instituted Orwellian systems requiring students to report on neighbors, friends, and professors for any instances of biased speech. For example, FIRE cites the University of Kentucky's definition of bias as, quote, intentionally or unintentionally intimidating, demeaning, mocking, degrading, marginalizing, or threatening individuals or groups, urging students to report on one another and professors for saying anything that offends anyone else. This practice demolishes freedom of speech and conscience on campus. How better to short-circuit free speech, which is free thought, by the way, than rewarding anonymous reporting of offensive speech to thought police? So, as in England, major voices of public criticism, satire, and commentary are silenced on American campuses, and great authors, artists, and filmmakers are being banned. Students who believe they have an absolute right to be free from offense or discomfort inevitably begin to self-censor. If our kids learn that any offensive jokes, remarks, or art should be banned, they're not going to appreciate the danger in censorship or demands for moral conformity. They won't even know that they've lost their first freedom. England is erupting. Just Google Tommy Robinson. And we're not far behind. So if you must send your kids to college, please inoculate them against our thought police education system. I'm the fed up and alarmed professor. See you next week.
This is Don NEUEN, co-host of the Drive Time Sit Rep. Join me as I call in to my Intel analyst, Denise Simon, for my daily situation report, or Sit Rep, the Drive Time Sit Rep. Check talkamericaradio.us for more information and show times.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3. Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don NEUEN, and I love to have this guest on. We've had him on before, and he's just my fave. My fave, I got to admit it. And that is one Gerald R. Molen. And we know him as Jerry. Jerry Molen is an Academy Award-winning executive producer of movies like Rain Man, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and many, many other movies, plus Dinesh D'Souza's movies. And that would be 2016 Obama's America. And then, of course, Hillary's America and America, Imagine the World Without Her, the whole nine yards. I mean, this is somebody in Jerry Molen.
All of the must-see films.
Exactly.
Let's just encapsulate it in the fact that Jerry Molen produces all of the must-see films. Back to you, Donna.
And it's funny, Jerry, because a friend of mine that I trade stocks with said, my husband and I never go to movies, but those were the only movies that we made sure we went to, were Dinesh's movies the last, 5 years or so. But Jerry Molen, welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Donna Fiducia, Don, thank you so much, guys, very much for having me.
All right, well, we have reason to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen, and we could think of no one better to bring into this this celebratory episode of Cowboy Logic Radio than one Jerry Molen. The reason that we're celebrating, and Jerry's been celebrating, and as we spoke about before the interview started, we have both been sitting on cloud nine, and that was after we found out that one Dinesh D'Souza had been pardoned completely and entirely by President Donald J. Trump. Jerry Molen, please set the stage for this as to how this all came to happen, and then as well as all the wonderful news that we received last week. And I think you probably received it right
Before
after
us.
Dinesh did.
Well, I did. But, I think it all goes to a very simple explanation. There are a lot of people out there who have had Dinesh in their prayers for a long time. A lot of people recognize the brilliance of this guy and what he brings to the table in his writings, the 16, 17, 18 books that he's written, And he's got another bestseller that's going to be coming out here shortly that we can talk about in a minute, and that's Death of a Nation. He's just a brilliant guy. He's a great American. For a guy who came here at 17 years old from Mumbai, India, he looked around and thought, gee, what a great country. What do I need to do to succeed? The blueprint's there for all of us. And he followed it, went to school, graduated from Dartmouth, went to work for Ronald Reagan, worked as a policy advisor for him, and then started writing books and giving lectures and teaching and debating. And I happened to meet him 4 or 5 years ago when he was looking for a producer for 2016 Obama's America. And we had a brief chat. We clicked, and the rest of that is history. I can't tell you, I just haven't been able to sleep. And not because I've got issues, it's because I'm so doggone happy, and this feeling of euphoria in my home between my wife and I has just been fantastic. And I know that kind of carries over across the whole country.
It does. We've had the honor of talking to Dinesh, thanks to you, Jerry Molen, on at least one occasion. And obviously, when the movie comes out, we'd love to have him back on. And in FoxNews.com, they actually have an article that Dinesh wrote about the pardon, and just the fact that an immigrant who, as you say, didn't even come here until he was 17 years old from India, gets a call from the President of the United States. He answers the phone and it says, "Please hold for the President of the United States." Can you imagine the thrill? I mean, obviously he probably knew it was happening at that time, but it's just such an honor. And in a way, a great 180 as the tide was turned, as Preet Bharara, another fellow India American that basically prosecuted Dinesh, got fired by Trump, and then Trump pardons Dinesh.
Yeah, there was a little bit of glee in my house when Preet was terminated from his position as a state attorney. I had no respect for him at all because, when you look at the so-called crime that Dinesh supposedly had committed, just before that, we had a guy named Harry Reid who happened to abscond, or I shouldn't say abscond. He borrowed, I think, over $30,000 from his campaign fund and gave it to his granddaughter to buy gifts for staff and whoever else. And when he was caught, he basically just wrote a check, and that was the end of it. Nothing happened. You go back a little further than that to another a Democrat who was running for president, John Edwards. He senator, I think, from North Carolina. And he, I think his crime, to use that word, was misusing $980,000, and he got a slap on the wrist.
Right.
But Dinesh, I have to say a little story. It gives you an idea of the man and the principles that this guy holds and why I respect and love him so much. But I was packing my stuff. In fact, I had packed my stuff to get ready to go back to New York for the trial. And he called me on this particular Monday, the day prior to my departure from here in Montana. And he said, "Listen, I just called to tell you, don't come. I'm going before the judge tomorrow." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to plead guilty." So, of course, I was stunned and shocked. I said, "Why are you going to do that?" And he said, they put a demand on me for the names of all the people that have been involved with me in the past. And he said all that would mean is each one of them would have had to go out and get attorneys of their own and go through this same kind of hell that I've gone through. And he said, "I can't put my friends through that." So the easiest way for me is just to plead guilty and put myself at the mercy of the court. Well, there's no talking him out of it. He made his decision, and that's, of course, what happened. But it shows you how loyal he was to those people who had befriended him, were loyal to him. And it also, I think, points out how people have a tendency to fear just a little bit our own government, sadly, because of what they can do in their well-meaning trek for sanity and honesty in our lives. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with our dear friend Jerry Molen, an Academy Award-winning producer for films that you are all too familiar with, like Schindler's List, Rain Man, among many of the other box office hits. But in addition to that, absolutely legend films that he and Dinesh D'Souza have worked on. And we have known Jerry now for a number of years. I don't know if I would say many, but 4 or 5 years probably, Jerry. And you have graced us with your humble appearances on Cowboy Logic Radio. And this one is a big one because, you know, like we've been talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, there is euphoria in our home about the fact that this past week, Dinesh D'Souza was granted a full unconditional pardon by Donald Trump. And it's something that I know Donna and I have been fighting often about and talking often about on Cowboy Logic Radio as well as social media. Jerry, this past Wednesday, I was tooting this horn and had no idea this was going to take place on one of the radio shows that Denise Simon and I do. We were talking about it in the Drive Time Sit Rep. And I said, this would be the ultimate move, in my opinion, by Donald Trump. It would definitely chastise the out-of-control prosecutors, and I'd like to get your take on that.
The weaponization,
yeah,
really.
The weaponization of the legal system and government agencies, but it would also vindicate and bring back into... Well, I guess justice has now been served.
Exactly. Jerry,
for a
let me just set the stage a little bit for everybody, give them some background information on this whole thing. You mentioned Harry Reid. Rosie O'Donnell, though, did exactly what Dinesh did.
I brought that same thing up the day that it came out.
5 separate occasions, 5 jurisdictions. She used aliases. Nobody went after her. But under James Comey, which is when Dinesh was prosecuted, Comey was FBI director. And Dinesh felt that his file would reveal information that would jeopardize the FBI's work. I'm sorry, Comey said that. Does that sound familiar? I mean, that really is. So it was a redacted file. This is exactly what they're doing to Donald Trump. This seems to be their MO. And then you get Preet Bharara in there. Again, all they want to do is get people prosecuted. And they have almost a perfect record because they force them to plead guilty like they did with Dinesh. Because they said, if you didn't, well, then we're going to have a second charge, and that one's going to carry a 5-year sentence, and that's obviously going to totally ruin Dinesh's life.
Or they're going to drag all of Dinesh's colleagues,
exactly,
including Jerry, probably into this nightmare.
And it's, again, why federal criminal cases are close to a 100% success rate. And it just is unbelievable to me. But Jerry Molen, this basically is the MO of the Obama administration. That's the bigger picture. And the supposed future Clinton administration that they can't believe lost.
Oh, listen, that's absolutely correct. As far as they were concerned, they were already throwing parties the night of the election. The newspaper already had headlines that Hillary won. I mean, there was a mass slap in the face to a lot of people in America when the announcement was made that Donald J. Trump was the President of the United States. You know, you guys have laid this out so well. And the thing I think that it's awfully hard for people to understand, because, of course, they haven't really been there. But if they look at what's going on today, right now, with Mr. Trump, and our legal system, they already have several people that they have indictments against. People have pleaded guilty, and all through this investigation and all these things that people have been found guilty of have nothing to do with Russian collusion or any other issues that they can find between the Russians and the Trump campaign. It's really quite frightening. Maybe something that we need to be concerned about. Maybe we should be concerned about that a little bit after our concern and what we show for our tomorrows here in America. Because I personally just one of those people who I'm absolutely terrified. Not for me, I'm one of the old guys. But my grandkids, my great-grandkids, I literally tear up when I think about their futures and what's ahead for them because of what the left is doing in America, and basically getting away with. That's why I love Dinesh D'Souza, because number one, he's not afraid to stand up. He's not afraid to speak out. He is so intelligent, and he does his homework. He knows exactly what he's speaking about and the subjects he's speaking to, and people should listen to him because and then they can check out what he's saying for themselves. But they're going to find that we have some scary times ahead of us right here in America.
Well, you can't do that because Dinesh knows history, and we can't teach the real history because then people will be too informed. That really is the bottom line. It's the bottom line of communism. In fact, they started to do stuff to Dinesh that is, things you see in the Soviet Union or in Venezuela now, in Cuba, and that was re-education. The one judge who was appointed by Bill Clinton said, well, we need to give you some psychiatric counseling now, too. And basically, that's re-education because he didn't have the right frame of mind. This is really scary stuff. And it really shows that we were slip-sliding, in my opinion, into a banana republic.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that I heard of a woman. She's a writer for the Washington Post. I think her name is Elizabeth Brunig, I think is her name. And she published an article that was titled, quote, "It's time to give socialism a try," unquote. Now, Harvard University tells us that socialism has killed over 100 million people. Harvard University has told us that more people have died for that socialist utopian society than any other explicit political ideology. That's Harvard. And
Yep.
They are about as far to the left as you can get. But we still have a tendency not to listen. And, I think one of the greatest little moments that I see at the end of some of these television shows is when they send their representatives out on the street and they talk to our students today, or our young people, our millennials.
It's unbelievable what they find.
Yeah, right. They ask them questions, especially when it gets to history. And since these kids have not learned anything about history in school, nothing about America, nothing about what the guys that wear the uniforms, what they've done to protect this great country. These kids are absent logic, common sense, and truth. And thank God for people like Dinesh D'Souza, because we'll keep getting the word out there.
Oh, yeah. I think Mark Levin last week was talking about the fact that 1/3 of college students cannot name one of the branches of government.
Oh, I think the best one. It's amazing. Yeah.
Now, Jerry, if I recall, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this because I don't recall exactly what Dinesh said, but when we interviewed Dinesh last, one of the things that bothered him the most about this entire ordeal, being charged, the trial, the conviction, or the sentencing, I should say, is the fact that because he was now labeled a convicted felon, he was not going to have the opportunity to vote again. And that really bothered him, if I remember our conversation correctly.
Oh, you're right. No, listen, you're absolutely right. He lost all his rights. He couldn't travel outside the country without special permission. He couldn't go see his family in Mumbai, India, without special permission. I think they held onto his passport. No, he lost all his rights. It was absolutely unconscionable that somebody like Parikh Barara and some of his friends could carry it to the extreme that they did. Or the judge, Richard Berman, where was he at? I mean, this guy, he fell right in line with his socialist masters, let me put it that way. That'll tick off a lot of people.
We're speaking with Academy Award winner Jerry Molen, who produced all of Dinesh D'Souza's movies, and he himself won an Academy Award for Schindler's List, and he's a producer or executive producer of so many great movies that everybody knows. We're talking Schindler's List, Rain Man, Hook, Jurassic Park, and just so many other ones. I want to get to the new movie that you're producing also for Dinesh. I got to tell you, I hate the name of it, but unfortunately it seems to be happening, and that is Death of a Nation. But before we get to that, Jerry Molen, can you just talk a little bit about how you operated in the cesspool that is Hollywood? How did you do it?
I had a great mother and father. They were a blessing to my life because there was certain values that were inserted into each one of us kids. There was 7 of us, and Mom and Dad, I give all the credit to them for teaching me what the word no meant, and allowing me the freedom to make my own decisions, but with guidance, with understanding, with love, and how did I give? I did my job. I worked very hard. I feel that I was pretty good at what I did, and I served those that I was working for, I think, in a very responsible and effective way. So to answer your question, it's kind of interesting, because when I first went to work in 1957, driving a truck at the Republic Pictures, the makeup of the industry was a little bit different. It was probably about 50-50 in those days. But there were enough conservatives that had a little weight. The Bob Hopes, the John Waynes, the Jimmy Stewarts, people like that, Charlton Heston, that could speak loudly. And there were still those on the left. Communism was a big thing back in Hollywood in the late 40s, early 50s, and the country went through that. But growing up in that environment where you could have conversations, and even if you disagreed with the person you were talking to, it was okay. Because at the end of the day, you'd go out to dinner with them, you were still friends. Today, sadly, you can't do that. Because today, if I say, gee, I disagree with what Barack Obama did regarding Benghazi, the response that I would get probably is, well, Jerry, it's because you're a racist or you're a bigot.
Mm-hmm.
There's no simple logic to it, to the answers. It's all hard, crass commentary. And again, getting back to your question, how'd I do it? I just followed the American dream. It was easy.
I got to say something. And ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to get a little syrupy here. I need to pay you a compliment. And the compliment is this. I would like for someday someone that knows you, that meets me, says to me, you know what, man? You remind me of the kind of gentleman and individual that is full of integrity that I know in a guy named Jerry Molen. That's what I would like to have someone say to me someday. And I mean that, sir, with all of my heart. You know exactly how Donna and I feel about you.
I know, and I appreciate that.
And we've made it very clear. The feelings that I have towards you, sir, don't have anything to do with any of the awards that you've got on your wall or on your desk or in your house. They have to do with the kind of an award that you've created for yourself as being a genuinely kind and humble and man of integrity.
That's really hard to find.
I thank you for your friendship.
Well, thank you very much. That's very, very, very kind of you. Your thoughtful words, they touch my heart. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You saw, Jerry Molen, though, the change. Like you say, the Bob Hopes, the Charlton Hestons, the Jimmy Stewarts just aren't there anymore. Well, now we have Dinesh D'Souza, and thank God he's got the pardon now. His newest book, though, and being here in Atlanta, obviously we know what Birth of a Nation was and the big movie that was many, many decades ago. Dinesh's new movie is called Death of a Nation. Unfortunately, everything he said has been so prophetic. I'm hoping this is the one that he's wrong about. But tell us about the movie, and I know it's coming out in early August.
Well, it's typical Dinesh D'Souza. I mean, the guy is so brilliant, and what he doesn't really understand, he gleans that information from history books, from other writings, from truth manuals, from facts, and he put together this phenomenal book that's going to blow people away. I mean, yeah, the title, Death of a Nation. Wow, that's really scary. If you stop and think about what can he mean by that, well, he can never be talking about America, right? Well, basically what he's talking about is a subheading, and that's the plantation politics and the making of the Democratic Party are what the book is all about. It talks about how we have arrived at this place in the United States of America where the two parties that we have aren't just political foes. They are now adversaries in the worst sense. Take a look at what just recently happened with Roseanne Barr. Yeah, she said some vile, despicable things. Absolutely. But when you weigh, and I use the word but, only in meaning when you take a look at what has been said from the left over and over and over, to call somebody a racist, to call somebody an idiot, to call use any other names, or the C word, like that was done recently, almost as vile, almost as mean. I had HBO taken out of my house because of Bill Maher.
Oh, he's a vile human being.
We just got rid of Netflix, too.
Yeah, it was something that he said that bothered me greatly. I wrote him a letter. Of course, I never heard back, which I understand. There was probably no response to what I said that he could come up with. But it just goes to show you that the two sides aren't equal.
No, they're
we
not.
Have a lot of
no,
we have a lot of waking up to do on the right side of the political divide here, but it needs to be done, and it will be done. The book Death of a Nation, every chapter is filled with footnotes. So that anyone that reads the book, they're going to have a tough time coming back and saying that's not true, that can't be right, because it's all there. People can look at it and do the research because he's allowed people that access to the footnotes of where he got his information.
Well, and the other great thing about the films that you and Dinesh do together, your films are full of footnotes. I remember Dinesh posting on his website on one of his films, the one about Hillary Clinton, every claim that he made, you could go to his website and research and find the basis for the integrity and the truth behind his claim. Jerry, before we go, and we've only got about 30 seconds, I need to say one last thing, and that is I need to remind you that Donna Fiducia is hanging on to her SAG card for one reason, and it's not for the $1.60 check that she gets from the Equalizer. It's so that someday she will be ready when you cast her and in one of your films to where she can play the role of somebody that dies a bloody death. She wants to do that, Jerry. On horseback with a gun.
And I said that to you when we talked to you on the phone to set up this interview. What's the deal with Death of a Nation? Can I die bloody in that one? He's like, well, it's almost already produced. So.
No, it's not. You know what? The beauty about the book, what it's going to do is going to help save this country. That's what it's going to do.
There you go.
All right, well, then I'll pass on having to die.
Well, the
next
one.
Okay. Well, the next one, exactly.
She wants to be eaten by a dinosaur or run over by a truck or shot by a gun. She wants a bloody death, Jerry.
And I'm not getting any younger. I used to be able to jump off a horse at a dead gallop. I can't do that anymore.
Remember that.
All right, Jerry Molen, thank you so much for joining us again, folks. Academy Award winner for Schindler's List and, of course, executive producer, Jurassic Park, and a number of other movies. But the big kahuna is the new movie coming out from Dinesh D'Souza. First week in August, Death of a Nation. It's a book and a movie, folks. And again, everything is footnoted because Dinesh D'Souza knows his history probably better than most native-born Americans. And all I can say is...
And he can vote again.
Yes. Jerry Molen, all I can say now to Preet Bharara and Dinesh D'Souza, karma's a bitch. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio. And coming up after the break, we'll be talking to Charles Ortel, the latest on the Clinton Foundation. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
It's all around me. It's all around me. It's all around me. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don NEUEN. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare. Yes, back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen, who's actually behaved himself because...
It's the new me, Donna.
Well, no, it's not. With
Yeah,
Jerry
it's
Molen, though,
it's
you
the new
have to
me.
behave yourself.
It's the new me.
Unfortunately, I know you're not going to do that with Charles Ortel.
What do you think I'm going to do?
You're not going to behave yourself. You're going to
How do
blurt
you
out
know?
your name.
How do you know?
Because I know you. I know you better than you know you. And just give him time, Charles. Now he's purposely not going to blurt out his name. He's trying very hard not to. He's shaking.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Neuen. Back to you, Donna.
Gosh. All right.
I tried to hold that in.
I know.
Did you see how red my face got?
Yes, I did, and you were shaking.
Yes.
So weird. All right. Charles Ortel, you've seen him on all the big news channels, folks.
He
I won't
tolerates
mention the
me.
other ones, but I will say
He
Fox News
tolerates
and Fox. He does tolerate you, which in and of itself makes him a very, very special individual to do that. But Charles is an investment banker and asset manager, and the real big thing about Charles is he knows how to read financials. And Charles has been like a laser the last, 3-4 years, Charles, on the Clinton Foundation and all the various tentacles that they have out there. And it's just gotten to a situation. Appendages, yes. You can read all his stuff on charlesortel.com. He's been in LifeZet, WorldNet Daily, the Sun Times of London, or Sunday Times of London you'd been on, and Russian TV's had you on a number of times too, Charles Ortel. But Charles, welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio, because we are due for a Clinton Foundation update.
Well, how you doing?
How you doing?
Hey, we're doing pretty good. How you doing, Charles? How you
Doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good.
That's good.
Okay.
Donna, what you want to eat? What would you like to have to eat?
I don't know. Cannoli. I got
You
a
want a
cannoli.
Charles, you got any cannolis up there?
How about a sandwich?
Hey, look at the hair on that Guido's back, Donna.
Will you stop? We had to go to the Marietta Diner this past week for Memorial Day for me to get a decent cannoli here in Georgia.
And you did get a decent cannoli.
I did. It was actually pretty good.
All right, Charles, let's get after it. Let's set the stage for the listeners, any of the listeners that we've got that are new to Cowboy Logic Radio, that have not been listening faithfully for the past 5 or 6 years, in which many of those years you were a guest on our show and have been discussing the Clinton Foundation. Can you unpack this for everybody and give everybody a thumbnail of what you've been doing and what you've found for the past 3 to 5 years with your investigations into the failed and improperly established Clinton Foundation, and what you have found with regard to all of the nefarious actions that have been taking place?
Sure. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me on. With charities, which really set this country apart, Americans are extremely generous. We give tremendous amounts, hundreds of billions of dollars each year to charities. And indeed, it's your listeners. It's not the Rockefellers. It's not Bill Gates. It's the tens of millions of mom and pop Americans, good, red-blooded, warm-hearted Americans who reach into their wallet when there's a disaster, or their purse when there's a disaster, who contribute at their churches or their synagogues or mosques or whatever, that give so much money to charity. Most people rightfully assume that the charities they support will be run by people who aren't trying to get rich off of them, and who indeed are probably losing money spending time on charities, because they're doing it for noble, good causes. And that really does happen every day of the week, 24/7 across this great country of ours. And it's to be commended. So when we think as normal people about a charity, our hackles generally are low. And when you think about a former president, I assumed in the very beginning that, even though the Clintons are fundamentally evil and corrupt people, in my opinion, that before they got associated raising money across state lines using the mail, the internet, and telephones, before they began sending wires across state lines and national boundaries, that they would do so taking care not to commit fraud. Because when the IRS decides that you're committing fraud, we've seen it in the years that we've been doing this together. Corinne Brown, the Jacksonville-based congressperson, is now in jail for 5 years over stealing $800,000. And she was only one of 3 people doing it over a number of years. Steve Stockman, a conservative Republican, is facing 18 felony counts. He's been convicted. He hasn't been sentenced yet in a $1.2 million charity fraud. The Clinton fraud, what we know about is at least $2.3 billion. That's the minimum that it is. That's what they declare in their books. What we don't know, and we may never know, is how much money actually was sent towards the Clintons by governments, by these various donors, for these various projects that they claim they've been pursuing all over the world. So we just don't really yet know that yet. But what we do know, and what got the I specialize in complex fraud, so I started with GE back in 2007, which at the time I identified it was a $900 billion fraud, in my opinion.
And we might add, it's in the process of tanking right now. How many years ago did you say that?
I first, in writing, did a report on August 31st, 2007, before the financial crisis.
It's pretty prophetic there, Mr. Charles Ortel. Okay, continue.
So, well, but why I do this, and it's you got to do something, right? But what I discovered is that people don't like to take on the gigantic frauds for fear that the fraudsters behind them will target whoever exposes the fraud, and I think it's the reverse. I think the mass of humanity really, it's something sticks in our skins. Even people like me who are trained in banking, and I'm a right winger when it comes to economics. We are suspicious of complex companies whose books don't quite foot. And anyway, so I started with that, and I got into this Clinton Foundation thing by accident. It's not really that big. You get $900 billion at GE compared to $2.3 billion of the Clinton Foundation. It's chump change. But when you start considering everything around the Clinton Foundation, the Global Fund, UNITAID, the UN, the stimulus, you start getting into the hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And what you realize, and this is the big story here, which is so disgusting, this whole idea of globalism that people talk about, the Ivy League campuses and the endowed institutions and all these big institutes, it sounds great. I'm not a nationalist, I'm a globalist. What they're talking about is they're talking about unregulated globalism. In other words, a world where you can do gigantic deals far bigger than you could do in any single country, and there's going to be no oversight of them. So think about how much money you can steal. That's what we've been living in since, I would argue, 1988, when I'm sorry to say it this way, but I'm not going to pull any punches, that idiot George H.W. Bush sold us on this New World Order gumbo that doesn't work. And, we began in this country first under H.W. and then under, Bill Clinton, the criminal, embracing the idea that, we should downplay the national laws of the United States and move towards this globalist world where people like Bill Clinton, after he becomes president, can then graduate, in quotes, and start concocting these globalist deals, stealing money around the world. So he was doing that. Then W, I think, is, quite frankly, I don't think he's very smart, and I wouldn't be surprised at all that the Clintons had negative information on him. They gamed the system. Even when George was president, they expanded the scope of their frauds. And then when that brings us to Obama, who I think, history is not going to be kind to Barack Obama. It's being rewritten now. It's taken a little while. Trump was treading very carefully in the beginning for fear of offending the African-American community in particular. But I think daily we're learning just how criminal an enterprise the Barack Obama presidency actually was.
And that drives the mainstream media nuts. I mean, they're rabid now, trying to protect, as I call it, the precious, like Lord of the Rings. Got to protect the precious. You can't have Barack Obama do anything wrong. But what you just even mentioned with Corinne Brown, $800,000. She's serving 5 years, and she is a Democrat. She was a superdelegate for Hillary, so she didn't even get off scot-free. The Clintons don't care who they step on if they have to. But the problem is, you're talking $2.3 billion now. When we first started talking, we thought there was 17 million that disappeared from the Clinton Foundation. It miraculously keeps growing and growing and growing, and the IRS does nothing about it. And they were supposed to audit every year since 99,
98. And when we say audit, what we mean there is not the kind that you get when you do your taxes improperly. When you have a company. And these charities are typically companies, or non-profit corporations. The state laws in the state where you're organized and where you then solicit determine what kind of an audit you need to get. And typically, rural states away from the coasts don't have the same kind of strict rules that in New York or California, both high-tax states have, that require you to do real audits. And when you speak, and I grew up hiring accounting firms and firing accounting firms for being bad. So, I have a sense of what's a good audit and what's a bad audit. And it's like anything else. You can go into a department store and you can ask for, an off-the-rack audit, or you ask for a custom suit. And that, and in the case of these Clinton Foundation audits, they should have been a custom suit. They should have been very detailed. They should have been, the auditor should have checked, called up every contributor and said, hey, did you really give $10 million to the Clinton Foundation? Provide evidence of that. They should have checked with every state. Hey, is the Clinton Foundation registered in Mississippi? Or was it censured in Mississippi 3 times, which is the case? It was censured in Mississippi 3 times. Did you use a fundraising agent that was illegally raising money? Yes, they did. Did they disclose that in every state? No, they haven't. They still haven't. Did you change the organization of the Clinton Foundation to put it under the thumb of the Clinton family on November 2nd, 2013? Yes, they did. Did they hide that from every attorney general in this country? Most of them, yes. It's a gross crime to do that. You are not allowed to concentrate the power of a public charity in the hands of any family. You're just not allowed to do it.
Do you think they hid it? Do you think they hid it from these attorneys general, or you think the attorneys general look the other way? I mean, you're talking about a former president in Bill Clinton. You're talking about, obviously, now a former president in Barack Obama, and at the time, a possible future president in Hillary Clinton. These people have seen and had access to the highest levels of intel on anybody and anything. And that's why I think this whole thing with Trump actually is unraveling, because they couldn't find anything, so they almost had to entrap him at this point. But you're talking about people who can coerce anybody to pretty much do whatever they want. And, to me, it all fits. It's why we don't have an IRS audit on anything. And you got all these people looking the other way. And it's scary because it does really we become a nation that is more a banana republic than a nation of laws.
Well, when you talk to the great Sidney Powell, I know you've had her on your show, and she's a wonderful human being. When you meet lawyers like that, and I know quite a few lawyers, not the crooked ones, obviously. And, these are people who really do love the law. And one of the reasons I got involved with this, beyond having nothing else to do, and just I like complex problems, was it occurred to me that this has to be solved, because this is such a bold example of immorality, illegality, that if you let this example stand, the republic is gone. And we're not going to let that happen. We cannot let that happen. This is too precious what our founders did for us. There are too many fantastic Americans across the ethnic and religious and other spectrums, rich and poor alike. There are too many of us who treasure freedom and order and liberty, and we can't let this gross example stand. And I think that, I don't know exactly what Donald Trump and his people are doing, but I am given to understand that there are very active investigations now, multiple U.S. attorneys, the IRS, other agencies, multiple foreign governments are all at this. And what they're trying to do, I think, is to roll up as much as possible the full extent of this and not just get, one person and miss 93% of it. I think they're really trying to do a very thorough job here and to send a message to the swamp. I applaud, frankly, what Donald Trump is doing so far and his team is doing so far. I wish he were working faster. I wish they had shut the Clinton Foundation down and said, look, you can't raise any more money. But that doesn't seem to be happening. And, you can't let this stand. If we let this stand, the next person will be even worse than a combination of Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, and Barack Obama. Be even worse than all that. We can't let that happen.
2 words. Jeff Sessions. Where do you think Jeff Sessions might be, Charles, in all of this? Because we've had a bolo out for Jeff Sessions now for quite a while. We've had a bolo out for Jeff Sessions. Where in the hell is Jeff Sessions? Do you think Jeff Sessions might have something to do with this in the background?
You mean Gumby?
Gumby. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't get Jeff Sessions. I don't get it.
I think what I just said to you was true. The Clintons have stuff on him, too. And Obama. I just think they got something on him.
Well, it wouldn't surprise. Well, that's a good segue. So last week I did a piece for Life Set on Valerie Jarrett. This is after Roseanne, said what she said, which is horrible about Jarrett. And that's just, you shouldn't drink and take Ambien and send tweets at it, whatever she did. That was really, poor form and horrible what she did. But anyway, that caused me to bring back up Valerie Jarrett. And there's a very curious thing that Jarrett did. On November 16th, 2008, Valerie Jarrett, this is, mind you, 12 days after the presidential election in 2008. This is as Jarrett and Obama are poised to be interviewed by the FBI, which they were, to find out what they may have known about attempts by Blagojevich, the governor now in jail, to possibly sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. She signs on the 16th of November, 2008, a document which not a single word in the document is true. None of it's true. It's supposed to memorialize relations between the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton when she's Secretary of State. But it's a document that, by its construction, and I've been well trained by lawyers, though I'm not a lawyer, that a memorandum of understanding is a worthless piece of garbage. It has no legal force and effect. You may as well, sign a comic book. I mean, it just doesn't matter what's in it. But they trot this memorandum of understanding out. This is Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who are then senators still, to their 98 Senate colleagues, and they say, look, this is the document, this is the arrangement that will protect the American taxpayer from any conflicts of interest that might arise when Hillary is Secretary of State and as Bill is involved with the Clinton Foundation. Beyond the fact that the memorandum of understanding has no legal force and effect, Bill Clinton then was not an officer, director, or in any formal way associated with any part of the Clinton Foundation at that moment in time, November 16th, 2008, and he's not a party to the agreement. He's not a named party to the agreement. And how could Valerie Jarrett know what she signed? I mean, she hadn't done the kind of research that you would do on the Clinton Foundation on November 16th, 2008. And by the way, we now know the Clinton Foundation on November 16th, 2008 was basically bankrupt, technically bankrupt. It was, it had its authority to operate in a key state involuntarily revoked in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You don't want, when that happens to a charity, you're done. You have to disclose it in every state that happened to you. It's a disability. You should be shut down just for that. And then we know from WikiLeaks that in July of 2008, Ira Magaziner, the CEO of the biggest piece of this thing, walked into the management of the Clinton Foundation and said, oh, by the way, I just stole $23 million with the CEO from restricted accounts and used it for other purposes, and the money's gone. And the Clinton Foundation said, well, okay, that's all right. Stealing, that's only $23 million. We'll just cover that up. We'll take the money from another slush fund we haven't told the IRS about, and we'll just use that money to cover up the loss, and we'll keep on going. And that's in WikiLeaks. That's there, black and white.
It's unbelievable to me. To me, Valerie Jarrett was the president of the United States. She called the shots. Nobody knows who she is because the media hides this. Could you imagine? I mean, all Trump has to do is basically look at somebody cross-eyed, and they're all over it. And yet the media gave Obama a total pass on everything. To me, she's the reason why we have the Iran nuke deal. All of a sudden, we get $150 billion to Iran for nothing. I mean, it's just crazy, and it's so obvious what's going on here. Talk a little bit about, if you would, Charles Ortel, the Ranbaxy, what happened with drugs, because that's the first thing they say. Oh, the Clinton Foundation was giving all these drugs to help poor black children in Africa.
Yeah, this is really a horrible tale. So Ranbaxy is still in business. It's a gigantic Indian company whose specialty is making what are called generic copies of branded drugs. So generic copies should be a lot cheaper, in theory, than branded versions. So what Bill and others, and Hillary and Chelsea, take credit for is bringing down the price of HIV/AIDS drugs so that the many people in these very poor countries who certainly don't have the money to pay for the medicines would have their lives extended by virtue of having access to these cheaper versions of these drugs. That's a fairy tale. That is just rubbish from the get-go. And the reason it's rubbish is that, drugs are only a small portion of the cost of care of an HIV and then later a full-blown AIDS patient. It's not like you just, you give some little kid a pill once a day and everything's fine. If the little kid lives underneath a tree 50 miles away from a light socket and 150 miles away from a hospital, has dirty water, no decent food, all kinds of worms and whatever. I mean, you can't solve the problem by just giving access to medicine. And, in the beginning of this thing, it was never organized lawfully. It was never a real entity. It was never controlled as needed to be by a U.S. operation. Ira Magaziner is an idiot, in my opinion. He's an arrogant idiot with no experience, and he's not a doctor. He's one of these, he likes to sell these fast-talking ideas around the world, and nobody ever checks his work, and everything he does blows up. So what they really did, I believe, is they served as a foil to the evil branded pharmaceutical companies who wanted to keep the price of HIV/AIDS drugs high in the U.S. and the West, which they still are. And they cut a crooked deal with them and said, all right, why don't you guys let us do these low-priced drugs in Africa and Asia. You don't want to sell your drugs there anyway because you know it's tough to get them into the bush, and it's tough to actually provide the care there. Just so we'll let the people in the poor countries be obliterated by these adulterated copies of generic drugs, and meanwhile you can keep your monopolies, your near monopolies, for these drugs and high prices inside the U.S. It's the most diabolical deal that I've ever seen by pretend do-gooders going around and saying, hey, you should give me credit. I'll look at all this life-saving stuff I've done. When in fact, these drugs, I mean, we know there's a horrible story. I mean, it's well written in Fortune magazine called Dirty Medicine. And if you take nothing away from this broadcast other than this, read that article. Then read something by Celia Farber, F-A-R-B-E-R, in the Harper's magazine, did something about HIV and AIDS. And when you give people HIV/AIDS drugs that they shouldn't have, what happens to you? In the worst case, your skin melts off your body and you die a horrible death when that happens. And that has happened to people getting the wrong kind of HIV/AIDS medicine. So, to take credit for this as a success and to have these gullible idiots, well, I call them scruffies, these guys, with the fuzzy beards and stupid woolen hats and, weird outfits who are going around trying to be social justice warriors, voting for Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton for all their good works. These aren't good works. They've been killing people around the world and stealing money out of the aid flows that should have gone to these poor people. This is the most reprehensible behavior I've ever seen, in anybody connected to political life anywhere in the world in history. It's disgusting. And yet there still are people supposedly smart who revere these Clintons, who went to a fundraiser last week and gave me more money.
No.
It's bad.
And they actually said in one case, you were telling me with Ranbaxy, when all these poor little kids in Africa were dying, it's just a bunch of black kids. Who cares? I mean, this is unbelievable. And the same goes really pretty much with the Clinton-Bush Haiti Health Initiative. I mean, obviously, Bush is in that too. So we have a ton of money that was collected tax-free. And you talk to the people in Haiti, and they're like, "Hey, we never saw that.
We
money.
hate the Clintons.
We hate the Clintons. It's pennies on the dollar." Charles, we got to take a break. Everybody, go to charlesortel.com. Read his latest in LifeZet, and along with the great filmmaker from NYU, Jason Goodman. We'll get to this later, Charles, about the various shows you're doing with Jason. We want to talk about that, game shows, and a bunch of other things. Celebrity Jeopardy. I love it. We'll be back with Charles Ortel, the second half of his interview coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Let me talk to you, black people. When you vote for blacks and put them in office under the banner of the Democrat Party, please explain to me what black people get as a result. This was not a nap that we have been taking. We are in a coma. You know what the interesting thing about pensions is? That's today's money given to people who ain't doing nothing for you today. Get off that black Democrat tit that they've been sucking on. Your country is being stolen from you, and the promise is being stolen from your children, and they're telling you it's all right while the rest of the world is trying to lap us. Well, why are we doing so poorly? 2 words: teachers' unions. Are you kidding me?
Black Man Thinking, Monday nights, 9 p.m.
This is Denise Simon. 18 hours a day, I live in a world as an intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. What I find is reprehensible. What I find is terrifying. What I find is treasonous. 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 The mainstream media has completely failed the American people. Failed the American people. Failed the American people. Failed the American people. Join me for the Denise Simon Experience every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Donald Trump came to Washington vowing to drain the swamp and make government work for the American people. But the swamp creatures in D.C. aren't going down without a fight, and the deep state is determined to overturn the election and keep their gravy train rolling. In these turbulent times, it's critical for patriots to stay engaged and be prepared to defend this president. You can stay up to date on Trump's battle to make America great again by listening to America First Radio with Jim Dawes each weeknight at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Liberty Feed.
The deep state wants to stop Donald Trump. Now, Jerome Corsi's powerful new book, Killing the Deep State, rips the lid off the secret war against Trump. Killing the Deep State reveals the shocking plot by the FBI, CIA, and NSA to end the Trump presidency. It's already a #1 Amazon bestseller. Newsmax says you can't ignore Killing the Deep State. Get it at bookstores everywhere or check out the free offer. Go online to deepstate411.com or call 800-406-0921.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
We're back with Charles Ortel. Again, his background is investment banking, asset manager, and the big thing is he is an investor and an experienced analyst, and now basically, Charles, an investigator, because you are able to read these financials like nobody else's business, and you are on the forefront of what is going on with the Clinton Foundation. And just before the break, we were talking about Ranbaxy and how they had inferior drugs that they really didn't seem to care that these poor kids in Africa were dying. Well, they're doing the same thing with Haiti, with the Clinton-Bush initiative there. And again, this all fits, Charles, because the Bushes didn't do anything against the Clintons either. In fact, the Bushes are more critical of Donald Trump than they are of Hillary and Obama. You know, because to me, these are all the one world order folks. They all have the same things. They use these charities as slush funds. The only good thing is since Hillary lost, I guess those funds have dried up to some extent. But talk about the Clinton-Bush, the Haitian initiative there. That didn't get anywhere either.
Yeah, so when you set up a charity, if somebody sets up a charity and you do it properly, the way most charities are done, you can't say that you're a charity that's going to do whatever you want to do when you wake up in the morning. I mean, you have to give a list of, you limit yourself to specific authorized purposes, and all the money that you take in has to be devoted to furthering those purposes. And the Clintons love to screw around with definitions. Unfortunately for them, the world of charity law is one where the definitions are well known. So purposes are what you get authorized to pursue, and the activities that you carry out have to further those purposes. And they try to blur the two and say, well, we were approved for these purposes, but we can do whatever activities we want in the name of those purposes. So the purposes they were approved for were narrow, to be a research facility and an archive in Little Rock, and to raise an endowment for that purpose only in Little Rock. That's it. They have never been authorized to do anything else. And it is a serious crime, actually, to go, let's say, into Michigan and say, I want to raise money for a library, and you take $10,000 from a bunch of people in Michigan, and then you spend it on HIV/AIDS work in Haiti. You can't do that. That's called a diversion, an illegal diversion. The problem is that I think, like many other aspects of the law, the regulatory apparatus is not up to the challenge of dealing with multinational charities. It's just not up to it. This is an Arkansas-based operation, and Arkansas has been for years now a Republican-controlled state. Nonetheless, it doesn't have the people inside Arkansas to check all these filings across all the states and then across all the many countries where the Clinton Foundation is raising money and spending money. So there isn't a regulator who has the ability to do all this, and I guess the inclination to do all this. So, the Clinton Foundation never had the authority to do earthquake relief work in Haiti or in hurricane relief work in Katrina. Never had that authority. That didn't stop the Clintons. They just they hoodwinked Team Bush, and the Clintons are very smart. That what they did is they reached out through Terry McAuliffe, the oily I think he's one of the masters of this criminal enterprise. They reached out to him and they offered a chance to HW to speak for Global Crossing, which was a rocket ship company that went from nowhere to gigantic valuation. Then it went bankrupt, and Bush converted his speaking fee into stock in Global Crossing and got a multi-million-dollar payday out of that. So HW was friendly with McAuliffe, and I think they leaned on W and they said, listen, during his first term, you don't really want to go too hard on Clinton here, even though you've got an open FBI investigation that began in February 2001 and took 4 years. They didn't find the obvious frauds. The leaders of the team were Mueller, Comey, and Rosenstein, all of whom were actively involved, considering this expanding fraud and giving the Clintons a pass. These very names, Mueller, Comey, and Rosenstein. Are they a problem for Trump now? Yes, they are. The Haiti thing, I've never been to it, is the poorest country, in our hemisphere. It cannot catch a break. It was raped by the French. Their forests were cut down. That created erosion of the land. It's desperately poor. They had this earthquake or hurricane, whatever it was, January 12th, 2010, and immediately Bill Clinton is raising money for it without authority, doesn't do any of the paperwork properly. The filings for 2010 show a wire of $37.2 million going from the parent Clinton Foundation to the joint venture Clinton-Bush-Haiti thing, but they sent it to an office address that doesn't exist, a post office box in Baltimore. Why does that matter? Rod Rosenstein's the U.S. attorney in Baltimore. You should have seen that. You should have seen the laureate corruption. You didn't see any of this. And by some account, the people of Haiti were sent between $10 and $13 billion, not through the Clinton Foundation joint venture, but through another thing called the Interim Haiti Recovery Commission that was jointly headed by Bill Clinton and a crooked former leader of Haiti. And that entity refuses to account for any of its ingoings or outgoings. So, I mean, it's the kind of thing where, the American people have not gotten mad enough yet. I mean, we scrimp, we save, we reluctantly send our money into the IRS. We expect that money to be spent carefully and wisely and frugally and not wasted. And instead, Bill Clinton and his cronies and Barack Obama and their cronies and the Bushes and their cronies, they just party like it's 1999. And hundreds of billions of dollars have gone missing. The national debt has gone under Obama from $10 to $21 trillion. And, the Democrats are now giving Donald Trump a hard time about spending $20 billion on a wall when Barack Obama spent $10 trillion on who knows what.
Yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with the great Charles K. Ortel, our dear friend of many years, and you can follow his great work at charlesortel.com. Now, Charles, I'm going to play a role that is very difficult for me to play, and that is of the pessimist, of the devil's advocate. We're talking about corruption and illegal activities that are spanning over the Obama administration, the George W. Bush administration, the Clinton administration, and possibly George 41 administration. You're talking about three of the most powerful, influential families on the surface of the earth. And we're talking about tentacles and appendages that are almost as big as the universe. Now, how do we bring this down without causing such a major catastrophe, both economically, because of the implications of the IRS and tax money and people that have taken tax breaks year after year after year, not only in the United States, Charles, but globally? How do we take them down?
See, it's long in process. So I didn't get into this just for the heck of it. I took my time. I decided, were the chances of winning worth the effort? And, I've been working on this since February of 2015, not taking a penny, and I don't want a penny from anybody. It's a lot of work. I work, 7 days a week, pretty much constant on it. What I've concluded, the reason I did this is I think that there's actually a confluence of interest here across. This could unite America because there are very few people other than Chelsea Clinton who are in favor of charity fraud, right? I mean, there are very few people who say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal from the Haitian poor. I'm going to steal from AIDS victims. I'm going to steal from Katrina victims. Very few people believe in that. And what I also realized, when I was back in college in 1975, somebody played a dirty trick on me, and I was running for president of the Yale Political Union, and they made an allegation against me that was absurd, and I found out I forced a correction ultimately. And I was then chairman of the Conservative Party at Yale, which was not really a far-right party, it was a center party. But I had allies in the two other right-leaning parties, and so a good friend of mine was head of the Progressive Party, just a personal friend. And so we forged it was my idea, actually. We forged a coalition of conservatives and progressives, and we beat a liberal who was running for president of the Yale Political Union back in 1975. And I sensed back in 2015 a similar opportunity. I think on the right and on the left, people like me are sick, and Utrice Lead, I'm on her show constantly, she's a great progressive friend, are sick and tired of these idiots like Clappers and the Brennans and others who argue that we should surrender our rights to a deep state because these morons know better than we do how to keep us safe. The evidence ain't there for that. I mean, the evidence is that since September 11th, 2001, this country has spent hundreds of billions of dollars down a rat hole. We're no safer than we were back then. In fact, in some ways, we're less safe because we're now financially in far worse shape. It's time for the deep state to be brought under control. In terms of the Democratic Party, the Democrats are fond of giving Republicans advice. I mean, they love explaining how Republicans should do things. And I know few Democrats are going to listen to this advice from me, and I consider myself an independent. The very same people who in the 60s and 70s were saying to you, don't trust anyone over 30, are now over 70. And those are the people who are running. You got Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren over 70. You got Bernie way over 70. You got Hillary over 70. Bill still hanging around. Biden still hanging. Why in the heck are Democrats listening to these septuagenarian failed candidates in 2018, 2020? Why does anyone care what these failures have to say? So I think you're going to see, I hope, a purge here of the detritus in the Democratic Party. The cynics in the Republican Party would say, by all means, let's finance Elizabeth Warren. Let's encourage Hillary to run and Biden to run, because that they're just easier to beat in 2018 and 20. And what about this idiot Eric Holder, this corrupt idiot who said that being in contempt of Congress was a badge of honor? He's now testing the waters to be president of the United States as a Democrat. I mean, I think good, honest Americans across the political spectrum look at the experiment from 1988 forward and say, it really hasn't worked for anybody who wasn't a collected globalist elitist.
Let me continue with my difficult role to play here of a pessimist. Well, Charles, I hear you, but you've got the mainstream media that's actually an appendage of the liberal Democrat Party. These people are too big to fail. You've got the media, you've got the fact they're too big to fail, you've got the fact that America doesn't have the stones to endure this or to see this through. Charles, how do we do it with all the negativity? Man, that's painful to even pretend.
All right,
but I'm trying.
Okay, well, so remember that my specialty, one of the specialties I did when I was much younger was hostile takeovers. So defenses and offenses, hostile takeovers are very difficult to do. So I thought this through just like a hostile takeover. And I decided that, it was unlikely in the United States that things would move quickly for just the reasons you're talking about. But that if I revealed to friends who are close to certain foreign governments that I had a way of getting their money back, that would excite the interest of multiple foreign governments, and I can report without revealing the names that has excited the interest of a lot of foreign governments. I also was able to reach out to some powerful people and encourage the IRS and U.S. attorneys and other agencies of the U.S. government to look hard at this. And we've also reached out to attorneys general across the United States. And like GE, when I started on GE, everyone said, Charles, look, you haven't worked in 5 years. I retired in 2002. In 2007, how in the hell are you going to bring down GE with $900 billion of market value? And I said, look, it's like fishing for whales. You don't reel a whale in the side of your boat on your line. You use the ocean, in this case, the ocean of public opinion, to tire out the animal. And that's what we do. I mean, you think about the progress we've made. When I started on this, people could say I'm crazy. That's fine. Doesn't bother me. But it was a heavy lift in the beginning to say the Clinton Foundation was a fraud. And now it's, I think, accepted wisdom. An overwhelming majority of the American population believes the Clinton Foundation is a fraud.
I agree.
And so it's just going to take some time here, and we're doing a service to the Democratic Party, Frank. I'm not saying this tongue-in-cheek. We are doing a service, ridding the Democratic Party of its corrupt elements, its Bidens, its Pocahontases, its Clintons, its Obamas. We're doing the Democrats a service, and I don't know if it's Tulsi Gabbard or who will rise out of the ashes of the Democratic Party to mount a challenge. You can forget about 2018 and 2020. Democrats are going to get roasted, in my opinion, in both years. But, there's going to be a building period here when the party rejects its lunatic Keith Ellison, Debbie Wasserwoman Schultz, wing that would be happy to give our secrets to the Pakistani ISI and, likes communism and rejects capital. I mean, that wing is never going to be...
Charles, there is no Democrat Party.
Well, it's a communist
there's
party.
no Democrat party.
Communist Party.
All right, one last line of thought on my pessimistic questioning, and I'm going to come back, kind of try to do a 180 here and get a little more positive about my thoughts here. Tell me this, with regard to domestic in the United States, how many attorney generals, you don't need to list the states, but out of 57 states that Barack Obama has let us know that we now have, how many attorney generals have you got on board with going after them? Because I remember years ago you said one of the big keys in the United States is that the attorney generals in each state have the power to bring these people down.
Well, so ordinarily that's the case, but the way it works is that when the FBI gets involved and asserts that it's a federal international matter, the states stand down and wait for let the FBI take the lead. And, it's been publicly announced that the FBI is looking at this. We've got the Inspector General's report coming out. It's supposed to be 400 pages long. I don't think you write a 400-page report saying everything's fine. I mean, everything were fine, you'd write 3 paragraphs and say, we've done exhaustive work, we see nothing, and we are ending our investigation. You write 400 pages because you found problems. And I think we absolutely know it's up on the FBI vault. There's a 21-section dump of documents, thousands of pages that categorically state Hillary Clinton was under investigation beginning July 10th, 2015, not 16, 15, for mishandling classified information. And that dump goes on to explain ultimately that she mishandled 2,115 documents that we know of. And ordinarily, for one instance, you go to jail. And there are people in jail for one instance. 2,115 that we know of. Jay Sekulow has just now found 30,000 new emails, apparently. Caused state to find 30,000 new emails, most of which having to do with the Clinton Foundation. This is all going to come to light, I think, in the next several days, weeks. And I think the pendulum's going to switch, just like it did on GE. I can remember people telling me, GE, you're an idiot, it's a great company, CNBC, they control the world, you'll never topple. GE could well go out of business. It is. When I started on it, its stock was at $40 a share. It's currently at $14. This is now 11 years later. And typically, you like your stocks to go up every year.
You typically do. So you think the IG report is going to reveal a lot of this?
Oh, I absolutely think so. And I think there's a great site called True Pundit. I've met the guys who run it, and they've got a story of this guy, John Giacolone, however you pronounce his name, I'm not sure I've gotten it right, was leading the FBI investigation into the Clinton email stuff, and he abruptly resigned in February of 2016. He will be testifying with others before Congress in the next 30 days. He knows literally where bodies are buried. He knows who was trying to stop this investigation. And I think the line people, the brave heroes and the line FBI agents and other people are going to come forward. The only thing that will, quote, in quotes, save the Clintons, in my mind, is a health emergency. That's the only thing. If, God forbid, Bill had, checked out or Hillary had a problem in the hospital.
But that's not going to save Chelsea, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Chelsea's out there saying Donald Trump doesn't represent America's values. What planet is this one on? And that's the thing. You've got her. She's a young woman. She could go to jail for the rest of her life if this stuff were prosecuted the way it should be. You spoke, though, a second ago about a death. There's been, over 40 involved deaths, they believe, tied to the Clintons through the past decades. Tell us about the latest, quote-unquote, unsolved death.
Well, there's a fellow called John Glasgow who, on January 28th, early in the morning in Little Rock, he left his house. He was young, married, in his 30s, no kids, no financial issues, but he had been fighting with people about an audit. He was the chief financial officer of the construction firm that was the biggest player in building the Clinton Foundation and building another headquarters in the same plot of land as the Clinton Foundation. So he disappears on January 28th, 2008, and his remains are found the day after, right as I wrote my first piece on the Clinton Foundation, March 16th, 2015. The next day, his remains are found in a state park in Arkansas. His death it has not been ruled either a suicide or a murder. It's an open case. I believe I have found the reason, a serious set of motives for why this guy would have been silenced. And I'm going to be laying that out in some considerable depth and sharing it with the authorities. Because if you look through the financial statements, both for the Clinton Foundation and for this thing, Project Heifer International, which is the other thing, both of their headquarters buildings were built at the same time by the same firm, the CDI contracting firm, of which this guy was the chief financial officer. And he had been asking tough questions, which Team Clinton would not have wanted asked, because in this period, 2004, 5, 6, he was dealing with an audit that would have covered this period. I believe that $75 million was stolen from the Clinton Foundation, a minimum of that in that period, and you can prove that by looking at the financial statements. And I don't think the investigators yet have looked closely enough at the motives to silence this guy, and when they pull on these strings, pull hard on them, force the accounting firm BKD, which had major league conflicts. BKD was the, in theory, auditor for the Clinton Foundation that did a disastrous job, the worst possible job you could ever do. They did. Then it also was auditing the city of Little Rock. It was also auditing, I think, the University of Arkansas, which is connected into this. It was auditing this other charity, Project Heifer International. And I don't think they've had, somebody like Joe DeGeneva, a really tough FBI agent, U.S. attorney, go in and get these people by the scruff of the neck and say, listen, we know you're dirty. It's a question of whether you go to jail for the next 25 lifetimes or whether we let you out after 20 years. It's a question of whether we take all of your family's money and your honor and bury you, or whether we cut you some slack here. And you do land hard on a bunch of these people. The truth will be known, and John Glasgow's family will find out what really, truly happened to him. I believe he was murdered.
Well, we've had so many. We had death by barbell. Obviously, we had all the other various deaths through the years. Many of the bodyguards for Bill Clinton had mysterious deaths. It really is scary what these people have gotten away with. And through the course of this interview, again, Charles Ortel, you've brought up Terry McAuliffe, the Bush and the Clintons, you've brought up, and the Obamas, Mueller, Comey, Rosenstein, all keep coming back. I'm sure Andrew Weitzman is in there as well. And this, I believe, is why Tim Kaine got picked as the vice president. There's the McAuliffe connection there in Virginia. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they're getting away with. But Charles Ortel, and again, folks, find him at charlesortel.com. Talk a little bit about what you're working with now with Jason Goodman. But he's a great young filmmaker, and you're doing a lot of stuff, game shows. Now, you yourself were on, To Tell the Truth, was it? You were an imposter, and they actually picked you?
Yeah, I got 3 out of the 4 votes. We stumped the town. That's the most money I've ever made in entertainment. It was back in September 1977. I'm in my room, and the phone rings, and somebody says, "Oh, this is so-and-so from NBC Studios in New York." And I thought it was one of my roommates playing a joke on me. I said, "Would you cut the crap, Roger?" And I slammed the phone down. And then they called back, and no, this really is NBC. And I said, well, give me your number, and I'll call you back. So I called them, and it was NBC. But, I was asked to impersonate this guy, Garth Ancier, who subsequently went on and had a crazy career actually, he was president of Fox News for a while, and other cable services. And he then had a spectacular flame out. But I got 3 out of the 4 votes, made $166.67.
Hey, I made like $350 from the Equalizer, but that was probably because it was like a couple decades later. So it was just the standard going rate there. But Jason Goodman, you're working on, you have Sunday with Charles that we can find. You got many episodes of that. But you and Jason are working on, Celebrity Jeopardy or some other kind of game shows?
Yeah, so it's actually crowdsourcethetruth.org. And so what we did is we decided that we were going to violate all the rules having to do with podcasts. People will tell you they should have the best podcasts or like 2 guys with, whipped cream pies pieing each other in the face, or some cat, strapped up to a bell with crazy music in the background for 6 minutes. Our average podcast is 2 hours, commercial free. Each one, what we do is it's my training in addressing boards, we do a board presentation, slides, that is free. I mean, you can look at it afterwards. We give you the links so you can look at the hard data that I'm analyzing, see for yourself what I'm seeing. We encourage people to circulate it. And we've had problems with, jerks trying to go after Jason for spurious reasons, and we've had strikes against the site, so that limits our audience from time to time. But the typical podcast of 2 hours in length gets more than 10,000 views in 24 hours. That's a lot. And we try to do, each one has a poster, movie poster, where we sort of have some fun with it. Jason is really very creative and accomplished. And he's an expert on 3D cameras and 3D cinema, and he's done a bunch of movies. He's 46, actually, and has a lot of experience.
He's still young in my book.
yeah, a little baby. But anyway, so we have a lot of fun with it. We just finished our 79th 2-hour show, which is like, it's like doing 79 movies in less than a year. And we had this idea that we could get some of this across with humor, so we thought it would be fun to do a fake version of To Tell the Truth, where we get people who love to lie, fake versions of those people on, and and see how they struggle trying to tell the truth and have fun with that. And also to do Celebrity Jeopardy, where we make the funny questions. So we're going to do a little bit of that.
And they can find all that at crowdsourcethetruth.org and all the information you're going to have, I guess?
Actually,
okay,
Jason's very modest about it. When I say 10,000 views, that's just on YouTube. We stream live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, various foreign channels, and I'm only counting the one that just YouTube views. And the difference is we encourage members of the audience to participate. What Jason's thing is crowdsourcing the truth. In other words, he has almost 59,000 subscribers on that thing, and these are people who are devotees. They watch this thing, they send us ideas, they circulate it, and very helpful getting us to governments, getting us around the world to different places. We've had investigations open in Australia and France and England because of this. In Canada?
You definitely are on the cutting edge. Again, go to crowdsourcethetruth.org for Jason Goodman's information with Charles Ortel and charlesortel.com. Read him in LifeZet, folks. He's got some stuff out just recently. But Charles, unfortunately, we've already run out of time. It just goes too fast. You are, again, on the cutting edge of what's going on with the Clinton Foundation. Charles Ortel, thank you so much, as usual, for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, folks, that wraps up the show for another week. We will see you next Tuesday, same bat time, bat channel. And in the meantime, God bless America.